Bowing stern.
Okay, folks, bowing stern. We just want to warn you as we back down, we're going to blow the horn. It's really loud for those of you on the front. Oh, might want to plug those ears.
How was that? Was that loud?
Okay, ready on the spring. Hold on. Scott, not yet. Okay, we got to get the stern line off here. Okay, stern is off. Spring line is off. Good afternoon, folks. What a way to start. We're going to have a brief introduction up here on the upper deck in just a moment. If you'd like to join me up here, I'm going to show you where we were on this morning's trip. And we'll talk about types of whales we saw, behaviors, pass around some food items, some baleen, the strainer from a whale, and we'll have a Coast Guard required life vest demonstration. I need to over safety goes for the boat as well. So if you want to join us up here, we got plenty of room. I'm going to take just a moment here to introduce your crew, and then we're going to do a life jacket demonstration. If you need any assistance throughout the trip, people I'm about to introduce are the people you want to see. And we're going to begin with Manny up here. Manny is your first mate and whale spotter. And we have Christina and Nick down inside the, down inside the main cabin. I think one of them is ready with a life jacket down there. So just to direct your attention up here, life jacket is very easy to put on. Just slip it over your head. You have one long belt. You want to put that around the waist. You want to clip the buckle on the front ring. Just pull the strap, get it tight, and wait for the final instructions from your captain and your crew. Your safety equipment here on the Dolphin 8. 3 benches here on the upper deck fold forward, so we have about half of our life jackets here. The remainder are lockers down inside the main cabin. I always like to ask you, how many of you have been out with us whale watching before? Okay, so there's quite a bit of experience here. The safety rules are fairly simple. My name's Mark Gilmore, I'm your naturalist, so one of the things I'll do is I'll try to make sure everybody is abiding by the rules here. We only have like 100 people on board on a boat that has a capacity for like 300. So I think what's going to happen here, I think you have no problem whatsoever moving around, certainly go from the upper deck to the lower deck to get different perspectives. As most of you have been here, there's a few that haven't. We use the hands of the clock method to point out all the sightings. So the bow, the front of the boat will be 12. Middle of the boat to the starboard right-hand side will be 3. The stern is 6. Forward left-hand side, 9 o'clock. Half-hour increments all the way around the boat. So again, for people who haven't been here before, we are a whale science boat, which means we're government certified with the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, Whale and Dolphin Conservation Society International. We have made a pledge to abide by very strict guidelines, which we helped actually write in the mid-80s. So it's all about protecting the animals in their natural habitat out here. The other side of it as well is the federal government expects us to certify me to provide you with some education. I'll certainly be around to answer any questions. I may ask you some too. Answer any questions that you have throughout the trip here. We'll begin with a navigational chart in just a moment. Most important rules, it's pretty calm offshore. We got about a 1-foot chop, but there were a lot of large vessels operating in the same area this morning. So I'll try to warn you, there's going to be a big rolling wave that's going to hit us and cause us to rock. You always want to have a firm handhold to the rails or the back of the benches. But most certainly you want to keep those feet on the deck at all times. And you know what I mean by that? Avoid standing on benches around the boat. And I do see some young children on board here as well, so it's very important. I always just like the anecdotal story here, of course, is if I yell 10 o'clock, I do know where all the adults are going to be. They're going to be right there against the rail, very aggressively trying to look at whales. Unfortunately, kids do get blocked. And we know kids, they may stand on benches trying to get a better view. So I would ask you, always look around, get a feeling for this as to where the kids are. make sure you shuttle the kids with one of their parents right up to the rail there so they don't miss anything. We will, by the way, on this part, we have a flying bridge on top, which means the captain and myself and a few others will be working up there, which means we'll open up the area in front of the wheelhouse so you can freely move around there as well. Personal belongings. I saw somebody hanging on your hatch just a second ago here. We cruise about 20 miles per hour. When we turn into the breeze and we're across it as well, things do go off the boat a lot. So we just ask you to be very cautious with your personal belongings. Our biggest concern, and every year we have different conservation messages here. I think the strongest message that I'm starting to get, doing a lot of reading about this and research right now, is we all know that plastics never disappear. And plastics just get smaller and smaller and smaller, down to almost the molecular size, tiny, tiny stuff. So small that they can actually be taken in by microscopic organisms, and therefore those plastics get passed from one step, things that eat the microscopic organisms, and eventually to whales, humans, and things like that. We've come under a little bit of criticism this year, and I agree with it, because we do have plastics down in the snack bar. We have water bottles, we have plastic straws, we have plastic lids, and we are doing our best right now to find sources of biodegradable material that will work on these boats. But until then, I just want to emphasize with everybody on board, please make sure you keep it in your hand. Don't set it down light outside on benches or anything where it's going to blow away. Trash receptacle here, trash receptacle at the back of those benches there as well. So just make sure, common sense really is all we're asking here as well. I would also mention, especially for those of you who haven't been out before, when we see whales, we all get really excited. And we peel layers off. And we throw things down on benches. And especially if it's a non-biodegradable lion or something like that, going into the water, people are very surprised to find out humpback whales' throat diameters don't expand much larger than a medium-sized grapefruit. They're taking something like a windbreaker that they can't feel their mouth. It could be kind of catastrophic to one of these large whales on it. Again, it's all about common sense. No smoking allowed on board the boat anymore. Keep a free hand holding onto rails or back to benches at all times. And feel free to ask me any questions, whatever, during the trip, during the introduction. I'm going to introduce Brendan over here. Brendan represents In a While, and he films a tape that they turn into a DVD or a download for all of you folks. He has the advantage of filming from a unique perspective up on top of the bridge there, and he does a phenomenal job. So he does the whole coastline, birds, whales, everything, and you folks as well. I got a copy of that. Talk to Brendan about that. And I'm going to find out what's going on here. Oh, this is truly a good day, folks. We are going to have our first whale sighting. Okay? Already. So in a controlled way, now proceed to, he's turned to the boat, 11 o'clock. How's that? Okay, what are you going to see? And of course, some of you would argue these are whales. Well, folks, they're little whales. They are dolphins. Hang on, we're going to do some rocking here.
De rugzakken zijn veilig, hè? Zit die bij onder?
So they're up ahead of us here. Anytime they ever get the carriers, everybody's looking at the ability to something like mass they do not do well. I should say, none of the two whales do that really. You can see them now, folks. Yeah, they're up ahead of it too, 11 o'clock. Every so often you might notice there are a few dolphins actually slamming the tail down like a lobtail. They are helping the warning, but they may be also helping the integrity of the group as a whole move. This is a very shallow location right now. By the way, they are in no danger of stranding or anything here. That's not why they're in here. They're actually in here probably corralling food. I'm just going to make a guesstimate. Guess is that we probably around 150 to 200 dolphins here. The general rule of thumb is for every dolphin appearing at the surface, we may have as many as 4 or 5 beneath the surface. So watch them carefully, and you'll see they're in little groups here. Of course, 1 or 2 of them up at a time there sometimes. You can find the nursery groups in here as well. Look for the little tiny baby dolphins, along with mothers and escorts, other females in the group. All behind us in 6. Of course, there's a really nice photograph where it lined up. That's the Long Point Lighthouse. So very typical out of the German fire. And shortly we'll take a look around the lighthouse.
That's the most dolphins I've ever seen.
You have to walk next to the big one. You'll see a little one. So, like right there. See how the little one's next to the mother?
They're really close.
Do you see it right there?
Okay.
One you see is probably 4 or 5 more down below.
Is it safe? These dolphins have delineated what we call rostrum, kind of a bulbous forehead. We call it a melon.
I saw a bunch of them.
And that bulbous forehead or melon helps them to amplify direct sound out into their environment. So you got to keep in mind, these are the dolphins, like toothed whales, that have echolocation. They have their own built-in sonar system, so they can pulse sounds out into the environment. And those sounds will bounce off a solid object like each other or the bulbous barb. And as they echo back and are collected in the lower jaw, they're transmitted from the inner ear. And the dolphin's getting information about distance, the shape of things, sometimes even the density of the object they bounce it off. So it's very sophisticated navigation systems. They don't really need to be seen in what it is they're sensing in a particular environment. I tell you that largely because they know where the public is, they're coming to move or right around us. Although not too interesting, sometimes they do like pressure wave with the boat goes to the clouds across the horizon.
Okay, looks like I've got you can see where we're heading next. Right behind us, everybody sits across. Is the second lighthouse I take out. That is the wood end lighthouse. So noted, because it used to be forested. Most of the wood was cut down so we could build the first township out there. So we're going to go to that lighthouse a mile away, and we're going to do the giant bridge in there, and we're going to head way out to the position on 8 o'clock, Base Point, the Northerners Point, and from there we're going to head about northeast up in the Stowaway. So if there's anybody that would like to rejoin me on, I'm going to show you on the chart, and some materials to pass around to you.
We did take all those dolphins, so it's nice.
Actually start out our trip. Now I want to take a look at the navigational chart here. So we, kind of obviously we're here in the harbor. Around the tip, Long Point. We'll turn around Wood End. We'll turn around Race Point. We're going to go right up here. Now my guess is, because we were working here all day yesterday as well, we're here this morning, that these whales will be on the southeastern corner of this really big sand and gravel deposit, which bears the name of the National Marine Sanctuary that's protecting it. So it's the Stillwagon Bank National Marine Sanctuary. The bank is very shallow, that's the key here. So there's a couple of reasons why whales come here. The bank's shallow, so at this southwestern end here, it's only about 50 to 60 feet deep, which means it's about half the length of the boat you're on, and the depth of the water there. And that's pretty significant. In fact, that bank does not get deeper than about 100 feet for 18 miles up to the north. And in comparison, it is about 350 feet here. And then it is 800 feet deep where you see the deep blue. So I'd like you to keep in mind, and I remind people on the boat of this simply because I always tend to forget it. We look around, whales are coming to the surface, they're taking breaths of air, they have lungs, they're breathing mammals. But then this world that we see them is not really their world. Their world is down there. And the seafloor out here has all this rise and fall and furrows, and most of it is sand and fine gravel. There are boulder fields and mud flats and everything else underwater. And the whales, when they go down, just keep in mind, they're navigating all that three-dimensional terrain. It has more detail than the whole coastline you see here. So that's actually their backyard, and of course we think they know it pretty well. Now, what we have here is a way to get water from the seafloor to the surface, and that's really key. Water coming into this area tends to be really cold water. You got to keep in mind a lot of this bottom water, that originated up in the Arctic. I'd just like to mention, if you want to talk, I had a group of people last trip that wanted to come up and talk climate change. It's one of my favorite subjects because we do have a lot of basic evidence here, scientific evidence that shows us what effect changing temperature has on the water. I'd like you to consider frigid cold water sinks. And water that is circulated around the Arctic, when it sinks, it takes down a huge amount of oxygen with it. So I just want to point out why this is Cape Cod. The frigid cold water that flows down on the seafloor in this area carries so much oxygen, it can support large populations of fish that live down on the seafloor. And that's really critical for this area. So you might know, all right, has anyone seen a perfect storm before? Okay, so the perfect storm, this coastal area is one of the most important on the entire planet. So I'll go so far as to say this. If you look at this chart right here, you see shallow Stellwagen Bank, and you imagine going way, way out here, and I can't stretch far enough to go up and show you where it is. Our continental shelf, this shallow shelf, goes out almost 200 miles offshore. And we have one of the second largest, actually, bank, shallow bank on the planet to our east and southeast. It's called George's Bank, and that's one you might remember from the movie. So we have over 10,000 square miles of really shallow location, and I looked up recently. There's one section
planet there is.
San Francisco that at low tide is only 13 feet deep. Got to get out. It's over 100 miles out. So this is all whale territory, and then the largest shallow bank that continues off George's, and that would be the Grand Banks off Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. It's all a great area for marine hunting whales. Now, anytime that a cold current hits a big rise in the seafloor, it does force the water up. We call that an upwelling. And what that does, besides bringing cold oxygen-rich water up, and actually helping regulate the climate worldwide in places, and it does circulate around the globe. More importantly, it brings up nutrients. So everything that dies decomposes, it goes down to the seafloor. It represents basically fertilizer. It can only be used by microscopic and large plants. That means we got to get that material into the sunlight. So when the water flips up, comes all the way up, what we get here is the microscopic plants, we call them phytoplankton. And I gotta say this because this was my conversation this morning. The phytoplankton reproduce fastest and do best in the coldest waters. So it's very critical that we have that coldness. That's a key part. We don't want warming of the waters, especially the surface. So the phytoplankton, they reproduce like crazy. They use the nutrients. They fill the water with their little bodies. And of course, all the water out here is green, especially in February. It gets really, really green and soupy out here. We then have this little critter, and I'm a little bit biased about this, mind you. In the ocean, I think that this is the most important organism. And they may not look like much at all. These are called copepods. These are little tiny crustaceans. And so as a crustacean, they're related to shrimp or lobsters and things like that. But these little guys eat other microscopic animals and microscopic plants. In turn, these feed the small fish that are quite literally feeding everything else out here. So it's critical to have all of this be the way it is. So I want to remind you, this is a glacial deposit here. And when the glacier formed this area, finished its job about 12,000 years ago. Then you've got a whale that's going to grow big enough to put on fat as well, that it can begin to make the migration back up here to the feeding grounds before mounting feeders up there. By the way, they got a lot more tricks up in the cities, but I won't share those with you right now. In any case, once the jaw comes back up over the curtain mainly that traps the fish, it's a simple matter of squeezing the fish in water against the inside edge of the baleen. Water's wrung out, fish are swallowed whole. I will say that baleen whales do have teeth as little tiny teeth buds when they're still in their mothers growing as embryos. So we now feel that all whales started out as tooth whales. I'll pass it to you again. Let's look at it. So keep in mind, really, all that we see out here is whales.
Here's a fish for you.
Or eating. And I want to add the latest research here. For about the past 5 years now, the scientists of the Stoic Lake National Marine Sanctuary, along with other scientists from Woods Hole and other organizations, they've been using data tag, which we attach to whales with suction cups. Basically, it's a matter of taking a big long carbon fiber pole out here with a suction cup tag on the end of it, run up onto the whale close to it, you basically crack it as hard as you can. And hopefully the suction cups all stick, you pull the tag out, and away goes the whale, and you get like 48 hours of its information. What information do we got? every three-dimensional movement of the whale, the depth and the sounds that they create. And what are the humpbacks doing at night? They're going down the seafloor. And they devise a lot of different ways of getting the sand eels out of the sand. And terrified sand eels, they school really fast. So they'll shoot up from the sand and school. And we've got a side-scanning sonar to watch hundreds of humpback whales and other types of whales. And of course, we were sitting in here searching around for like one or two humpbacks and a few finback whales. And we were on a late afternoon trip. It was the end of the day, and we hadn't seen a humpback whale. And we looked out, and lo and behold, there was a whale just lying on the surface way out. And we went out there. I have not seen this whale for 5 years. But I was certainly here when it was really young and started having its own first babies. This whale's name is Giraffe. So I was quite surprised, so I thought I'd make a special point of sharing it with you. I was so surprised to see her. How do we name Giraffe? Giraffe has 2 rows of black squares that look like the pattern on a giraffe. That is a genetic fingerprint. She was born with it. She's always had it. It's always been to study whales and study them. We couldn't do the word unless all of you were coming out here as much as you have. The Dolphin vessels and other vessels that research.
The baleen is what's inside that sifts through the fish.
Through the National Fisheries
These
Service.
fibers
The government
separate
the records of this type of numbers,
But
whales,
water
locations,
catches the fish, you know, lets the
it's all
water go.
incredibly beneficial. Again, if you have any
Can you
questions,
pass
I
it
would just
along?
ask you to move around carefully. It's a beautiful day. Start looking.
Goodness, rather than for your drums, you want to go down the stairs? Yeah. You want to sit down next to Dad?
Look at that, that's the baleen right there. You want to read that?
With a mouthful of food and water, the whale uses its tongue to push water out through the bowing plates. The hair-like bristles of the bowing allow the water to pass, enter a padding fish in the whale's mouth, which they then swallow the whole.
Nice. Cool. Do you want to look at the different whales, Luke? You want to look at this chart?
In a second.
Oh, wow.
You can see us, we are here. And the evidence of that, we got the visible spouts from whales up here at 11 o'clock.
Oh yeah, see? Oh, yeah, there's the tail. Yep. Oh, there's another one.
There's another tail.
Okay, generally we're going to see 4 or 5 spouts, exhalations, and inhalations at the surface before a deep dive. And of course, we weren't counting it on our way up here, but there were at least 2 humpback whales up here at 11:30, and other whales spread throughout the area here. So I think a deep dive right now, I think they were coming in this direction. So we'll wait and see. And you do want to look all around the boat. Right here, hold it up.
Look at this. See that?
Okay.
Right up there? Right there.
Folks, as I was beginning to mention before we stop in Dolphin, we are a whale sense boat. Here comes the tail. Okay, so in one tail we have 4 whales at least here. Get ready for another tail. One whale lifting the tail there. That's a oh, there's a little right here, buddy. 1 o'clock. A little pop.
Right here. You see it?
Okay, you may also notice that there's a little whale ahead of you and a little tail, a
Wow,
chubby tail.
that's cool.
That is a calf. It's a baby whale, and it's by its mother, and it almost looks like it's nursing. So watch here. Again, 12:30. If you see the little one, it's the seal kind of surfing it. Little gray seal. Okay, there goes the calf diving underneath the area of the mother's tail. And if it pops up on the opposing side, it probably just nursed. There's mom, swimming straight at the surface. That is our whale Venom, and the calf did in fact just nurse.
On the other side too.
We get another humpback on the other side suddenly, 10 o'clock. So that's the baby's tail. There's Mom. Mom's going to lift her tail. Get ready. This is Hancock. Now watch, she'll put her flippers out to the side, bring them closer to the surface of the water, and use them to push down to pivot the tail up and over. But you notice the calf keeps lifting that. She's going to lift her tail, but it almost looks too like she's sculling, trying to maintain position for the calf, which is going to pop up on this side to continue nursing there. Get ready for the tail here. Now I do want to say this, the names that showed you with giraffe, the names are based on the tail pattern, the black and white tail pattern, which is very distinctive. Here comes the tail. Yeah, that one that just dove, we're not sure. I do want to tell you, Bill, who's our education and research coordinator, director here, is up here with us. Well, there's two of us. We're going to make sure we can try to ID these whales. We do have an electronic catalog on board, by the way, which covers hundreds of tail patterns and dorsal fins to help us. Anyways, the mother's name is Hancock, as in John Hancock. So look for black that looks similar. Here goes her tail right now, but not quite. Okay, it looks like they're just going to swim around us here. That looks like Venom right there. Now you may notice Venom has lost about 1/3 of her right tail. The whales are starting to get speed here. I'm expecting tails. Here we go. Look how beautiful it is. So just keep in mind, the older whale, the entire population has exactly that. You may notice entanglement scars on Venom. So you can almost see the white lines, like venomous fangs sticking up into the black central core. You can imagine a line around that central core, and potentially a red line right around the tip of that tail to cut all the way through it. We actually were looking at, we were about 11 or 12 humpback whales in this area, so keep in mind 4 of them alone are right here with the mother and calf. Again, Hancock and her calf. I was going to say, Hancock's baby does not yet have a name. You may have noticed it was all easy. We learned our lesson. We were very fast to name whales when they were born in the population. We first started doing the research in the mid-70s, and we learned fairly quickly. Tail patterns do change. Most likely will fill in all black.
Oh, it's straight ahead. Nice.
that, folks, we're at that point now. Again, an average 3 to 5 minute dive. You want to look all around the boat here. It's pretty unpredictable where the whales are going to come up. I will say one thing that we learned this past couple of years from using those tags I mentioned to you, the data tags. We got ourselves in the feeling that, and there was another humpback that dove way up there at 11:30. If whales were swimming in a straight line at the surface, we tended to think they were going to keep going in a straight line, but the data tags that we put on them with the suction cups tell us otherwise. So when the whales go down, they very often zigzag all around, possibly down around the seafloor, under the boat and things like that. And even though they may come up, going in the same direction again, they've traveled all over the place. So we're very cautious. Did want to make it clear, we are a whale sense boat. We're certified by the federal government. We have strict guidelines under which we operate, and your captain does a phenomenal job of abiding by those guidelines. And they're all there designed to protect the animals. And they come after so many years, since the mid-70s, of actually watching whales and how they behave around boats. So obviously it's an important resource. It's an important resource to protect and watch at the same time. That is the group of what we've been waiting for up there at 12 o'clock. So we're going to move on. People, make sure everything is secure though. Jump on the rope over there to 11. Keep watching that spot and be happy here. Yeah, that is the calf. You can see its size when it comes to the surface, also a much smaller fish out there. We've always had a general rule of thumb here in whale watching that when we get a stronger southwest wind, the waves create almost like a jump, and we more frequently see whales jumping or in these high activity level behaviors, which could be like flipper slapping, bobtailing, things like that. So we'll have to wait and see how this progresses. We've got a whale right here at 12.
Oh, wow. Oh, yikes.
Okay, what we're ending up with is generally we keep the same whales one another. That's a really small whale right there. Almost looks like a calf. You notice when the calf was jumping, that's Hancock's calf over at 11 o'clock. Suddenly the big whales have come up around her. And what we have is another group moving here across the bow somewhere underwater. Looking like they may join up with the group.
whales. Not easy, but
themselves open. So they're very cautious around us, and their eyesight is excellent, albeit their eyes are to the sides. They're not like a typical predator that looks forward. The eyes are to the side, so they kind of got to shift their head around a little bit to see us. And I'm not going to suggest everybody go to the other, because what I said before, it could come up anywhere. At about 10 o'clock, yeah, quite a ways out there. Now the question becomes, you notice we had a group of 4, including the other captain, and then we had a group of 3, including 1 juvenile and 2 larger whales go by us. So the question now becomes, which are those here? But we're going to go over there and see.
another one. Yeah, that group over there at about 9 o'clock, you notice that they've split off somewhat here. And these guys, we might get a tail from, no, not quite. Okay, so these guys are going to stay up here, folks. Keep watching here. We're going to get a really close up.
Nice, look at that. Like it may be the cat up here at the top. 10? Now that was not the baby. I can tell that was one of the larger whales. My bad is that was venom. One of the things we're seeing here is whales are beginning to mix and match a little bit. So you notice it got down to 3, Hancock in the cap and venom. Whoa! You notice they get so much bigger as they get closer. Now, of course, the whales are getting buoyant again. They've been teased right here at 11.
raising the tail,
Wow, two at the
we
same
believe
time.
is a way to overcome your buoyancy. So you lift the tail way into the air, and that tail comes to the effect of gravity and helps put you down. It is part of the reason, by the way, they're called humpback whales. The humping up of the tail, the fatty hump on the back in front of the dorsal fin.
When they were in the giant worm and they didn't know it, but it, like when they shot it, like it started shaking.
Now those are actually other whales, humpback whales, or other boats looking at them. Here's ours right here, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Tail, 11. Another humpback, 12:30. Now, I didn't really mention too much about the research that we conduct on board these boats, but we are taking photographs of the tail. We have to have the proof which whales are here. We, of course, know their genders, male or female. We know their ages, if they happen to be born in the population here. And we're noting their behavior. So the best guess here is that with it bright and sunny, a lot of the food is down deeper. So these animals are probably diving down and feeding some distance beneath the surface. Yeah, it looks like the same fork coming over again. Oh, tail breach.
Where?
Saw some of the flipper come up there.
Where?
See him?
Here's the whale that breached. And that's the whale to the left. Okay, the calf is in here with Hancock. Now, for those of you wondering why whales would jump, certainly all mammals do exhibit play activity, exercise, unique digestion. In particular, the tail breaching you just saw, there's a tail. Very often we have seen after tail breaches, the whales defecate. They actually basically get rid of digested fish, and then they may stop the behavior. So that gives us some insight as to what the tail breaching might mean across the communication of the whales in the area. Very often jumps might be directed towards areas of the body. I was talking about the barnacles before, which are heading into the sea. This whale, they're probably irritating and they do add weight to the body. So we would really consider them to be parasites. Do any good for the whale, they do have an effect on it, a negative effect here. So landing on barnacles might be a way to dislodge them from the body. I'll tell you folks, in watching humpback whales, if you notice there's any circular wounds on the body that look like little divots, indentation, some of these whales out here have actually been satellite tagged. And of course the satellite tag is really good for us for the information, long-term movement of whales across different areas. And the retention of satellite tags is many months. Unlike those little suction cup tags, which are only designed for 8 hours, and then they kind of pop off and float, and we can retrieve them. in mind, calves generally born January or February, but down in the Caribbean, in the warm water area. I think it's interesting, we've been conjecturing for a really long time, how in the world does a baby whale swim all the way back up here? It was noticed several years ago. It appears that very often a big female humpback whale that's had a calf is accompanied by an escort, or sometimes called a nurse whale. And in fact, the whales in pair, the big whales, may swim just below and behind the calf and actually create a big pressure wave in front of their body. So the calf can rest at the surface and more or less be pushed along slowly. And as you might, difficult for a calf to swim all the way back up here, especially fast enough, long enough for the mother to get back here to feed herself. So it's a kind of precarious thing that these humpback mothers do. Switching to the left side, left and top. Okay, we're going to leave this group of whales now, and we're going to move on to whales up here at 12:30.
These are all Dolphin play boats.
Okay, folks, I just want to let you know we were already out of time. but we want to come over here because I think these are 2 new whales we haven't seen yet. So we're going to spend a little bit of time here. We'll get a couple surfacings maybe, if the whales cooperate. And just be prepared because then I'm going to have to go home.
Okay, 3 o'clock, they've given us the slip.
To travel pretty far, considering we went right to the point they last went down.
2 o'clock is return. However, folks, you do notice they are on our way back home now. Much to our advantage.
Wow. You're good on stairs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make it easier when it's time to get up.
passed on for a while. The other explanation is that giant granite structure there. That does signify the fact that the Pilgrims landed here first. And after several months assessing the resources here, as I understand it, one of the two major things was a lack of fresh water and very poor quality growing soil. They decided to leave. And as you were coming in, if you looked at there was what looked like a giant island that was Manamet Heights outside of Plymouth Harbor. They headed for that. Turned out to be the mainland, turned out to be Plymouth, and of course they formed the first permanent colony there. The big black and white pictures here is part of an exhibit called They Also Face the Sea, and it is in honor of Portuguese women who eventually joined their husbands here in America. The husbands actually came here and they fished these waters. It's a very treacherous place to fish, and eventually raised enough money that they're able to send for their families and come. They formed a permanent Portuguese fishing colony here, and these women were at the backbone of this community here. As fishermen, the males were going offshore for several weeks at a time. Okay, the very last thing I'd like to do, out there, types of areas, numbers in the groups, start times, behaviors. We did repeat several sightings there. The total number of humpbacks was 7 humpbacks, and I think even nicer than the humpbacks was, for at least myself, 175 to 200 Atlantic white-sided dolphins right in the cove of the harbor here. Of the animals that we saw out there, we got positive IDs on Hancock and her new calf of this year. Hancock was first seen here 25 years ago. And that is her 3rd calf. She was with Venom, also a reproductive mature female, 20 years old, has had 3 calves previous to this year. Pivot, a 9-year-old female, has had no calves yet, and Men, an 8-year-old female that has also not had any calves. So do notice that it was all females there. And females, what we believe is happening is here, females that bring their calves back here and the calves that turn out to be females more or less become imprinted on this area, using it as their feeding ground and subsequently their nursing ground when they have their own calves. Finally, folks, I hope you enjoyed the trip there. So on behalf of your captain and your crew here, thanks a lot for coming out with us. We do hope you'll come out again. The spring line is on. Does that matter? That one over the wall.